All right, it's Jared Moore again, and we're here today for another Meet the Candidate for the Mvskoke Creek Nation 2021 election. Today's candidate is Travis Scott. He is the incumbent for the Okfuskee District Seat B. And we're going to be taking questions from the chat, but before we start on that, this is probably, I think, the first time in the history of the nation that this has ever happened, but we're going to focus on the impeachment proceedings and give Representative Scott a chance to tell us his side of the story about what is this all about. So to first start off with, Representative Scott, the National Council in their impeachment directive from August 12th has accused you of violating MCN code by doing business contracts with the government, the casinos, and also MNBE to the amounts of $107,000 total between those three. What's the story there? Tell us your side of the story. How did this happen? Where did we get to this point?
Well, Jared, I appreciate that. Thanks for the opportunity to come. And this is actually the first time that I've had the ability to express my thoughts and feelings on this matter. I haven't been given the opportunity to have the due process. So I appreciate you asking that question. First of all, when it says contracts, there was no contracts whatsoever. We do solely business on a daily basis on a open account status. So we never signed any contracts. We never bid any opportunities from the nation. We just solely operated open and freely, just like the law says, because that's the exception to the rule that, long as you operate like the government does, open and freely, that, you're able to do that. And that's what we've done. We've never changed any of our practices at our business. We've continued to do it that way ever since the nation had done business with the previous owners. So that's the clarity on that part of that Title 31 and 37.
Okay.
So, going back to the due process issue that when all this started, that, I never was given the opportunity to go to fact finding. They never ceased to ask me to come to a meeting. So I don't know the full investigation. I'm kind of in the dark, just like the citizens. I did get a summary when they initiated their expulsion of my seat. So when I say summary, it was about 4 documents that I received. So I really haven't seen any of the evidence that was presented to fact finding.
Okay.
So right now the process is still going through, and I have yet to had any communication since that last council meeting that I was removed from my seat, expelled from all the meetings. I've had no communication whatsoever.
The impeachment directive says that the contracts or the allegations in question started in January 2018, which would have been under Chief Floyd's administration. Did Chief Floyd's administration ever come and say anything to you, or did anybody at any point during that whole long time period from January 2018 to September 2020 ever come to your business or to you and say, hey, we want to look at this, we don't know if this is proper? I mean, it seems like a long period for nobody to raise any alarms.
Well, that's a good question, because the irony of it is, in my first 2 years, when I got reelected for my 3rd term, that nothing was ever brought forth as far as a conflict of interest. It kind of ceases to amaze me that, we operate 2 years with the nation, and during Chief Floyd's term that, I think there was a question in a committee meeting that had addressed this issue, and one of the council reps had made that comment to Chief Floyd, and he says, well, I'll get a directive and see that, if there's any conflict of interest or any issues with that allegation. And so I never received anything in writing. We talked to the AG about it, and the AG, at the time was Mr. Dillinger, that, there was no conflict because we wasn't sealing any bids or contracts. We were just operating open and freely. So
I see.
That's one of the that kind of amazes me, that once Chief Hill had got into office, that this became a problem. So
I see. So, but what you're saying is that in a committee meeting that this was brought up to Chief Floyd, and Chief Floyd took a look at it and said he was going to issue a directive saying that it was all above board. Is that am I interpreting that right?
Correct.
Okay,
I've never seen that directive.
Okay.
It was actually Representative Osborne, and at the time, Second Chief Beaver had proposed that question to Chief Floyd about that. I never seen the directive.
Okay.
And so we just continued to operate like we've been operating.
I see. Okay, and so, but let's say that there was some review of this. Let's say that the Roger Wiley, the AG now, had a differing opinion from Kevin Dillinger on whether this could be done. Did the AG's office contact you? Has anybody from this administration contacted you at any point before this impeachment proceedings or anything started?
No, sir. I haven't been contacted by the AG's office in regards to this as far as being a conflict of interest. Once the National Council started their process, then that's when they seeked opinions from the AG's office, I assume, in relation to this issue. We haven't changed anything that we do at our business whatsoever. I mean, we just continue to operate open and freely.
Well, apart from, obviously, we can't litigate whatever happened here in this forum, but apart from the impeachment process and everything else, what would you say to a citizen? Because this is one of the major problems I see with your candidacy going forward, and if let's say that you win your seat on the council. It seems like because this impeachment process has gone through and there's been unanimous votes to initiate this stuff, how would you ever get anything passed? If I was a Okfuskee District constituent, why would I vote for you over someone else who maybe doesn't have whatever the animosity is or whatever, or because it seems like it'd be hard for you to make coalitions to get bills passed going into the future with this impeachment situation?
Well, that kind of presence already presented some when I was, before the allegations began, with certain legislation because of my relationship with Chief Hill at the time, that there were certain things that wouldn't get passed, and there was things that would come up, and I would just let some other representatives sponsor that legislation because of the, like I said, the animosity. I think my track record speaks for itself over the years that I've accomplished for my citizens all over, not just Okfuskee, but throughout the nation and jurisdiction, and even outside the jurisdiction, that I'm here to support what's the betterment of the tribe. As far as going forward, part of your question, the only thing I can say is this: is that I've yet to be charged for any crime. I don't know, the extent of the full investigation because I hadn't had the adequacy of any evidence presented to me or my legal counsel. With all of the proceeding that's ongoing, like I said, I haven't had any contact. I don't know where they are with the situation. But all I can say is that I'm here for the people. That's what we've always been here for. And until I'm charged with a crime of whatever the allegations are, I think the court ruling had illustrated some of the 10 allegations that were listed, and the things that are ongoing now is not part of that 10. So I'm still trying to fathom some of the issues here.
Right. And just some clarification for the audience. Representative Scott is the son-in-law of Chief Hill. Is that correct? That's right. And also, the court ruling that Representative Scott is referring to, we have gotten a copy of it, but we don't have an official copy from the court of the ruling yet. because we haven't been able to get one through the court clerk, but we're going to get that next week and we'll have a breakdown on that. But apparently there has been a ruling in Representative Scott's case in the district court where Representative Scott sought writs of mandamus to receive his pay and his health benefits, eliminate the $50,000 fine, and bar the National Council from interfering in his representative duties. And we've read through with the copy that we got. We just don't have the official copy yet, so we're waiting to do the full breakdown of that when we get it next week. So, but that should be coming. So, I guess my next question too, and I would say to the audience, if you guys have any questions for Representative Scott, pop them into the chat. We're just talking about the impeachment now because it seems like that would be the most forefront thing. But if you have another question for him, pop it into the chat. I guess the other part of this for me too is that, like you said, you haven't been presented with any of the evidence or any of the findings of the fact-finding committees, but there have been unanimous votes. So what would you say to a citizen who says, where there's smoke, there must be fire, like that the whole National Council wouldn't have voted unanimously to start this process if he hadn't done something wrong, whether he knows about it or not? What would you say to them to try to sway them?
Well, I think one of the things that I would present to a citizen or an individual that come that the citizen is in, that's the position I'm in. I'm asking the same questions that they're asking because during the investigation of the allegations that was presented, I can't answer those questions because I don't know what the responses and the evidence and the witnesses and what that is. So it's kind of hard to persuade or convince someone to vote for me when myself, I don't have the answers either. So, I think that's something that most of the citizens that have asked, they want answers, just like I do. I want the answers. There'll be a time that this will come to a public hearing, and once that time gets here, then maybe we can all get the answers.
What is your prediction for the future on the impeachment process? Are you willing to say right now that you're going to be totally exonerated and that's your goal? Because one would assume that because you were asked for your resignation, you said I'm not going to do that, and then you're also running for re-election, so you're obviously saying to the council, I don't think these charges are true, I'm going to fight it all the way. So what's your prediction for the impeachment process? Are you going to do stuff like call Chief Floyd to come testify and those things? What's the game plan there that you can share? Well,
there's still many avenues of litigation that could transpire with this situation, and until I foresee what the National Council proceeds to do, I know that the order does say that they can proceed with the impeachment hearing. They do have that right. So until we get to that point, and whatever the committee comes back and with their special prosecutor and the allegations at hand, then me and my legal counsel will have to proceed as necessary. I think one of the questions is that a lot of citizens had was, their special prosecutor was also their attorney in this petition case in the district court, and asked me about the conflict of interest in things, and I said, well, that's a legality issue that I can't answer. That's there's a lot of things that could entail happen. We probably anticipate an appeal to the Supreme Court because they had that ability to do it. So just kind of sitting back and have to wait like we have been for the last several weeks to see where this leads to.
Okay, and just clarification for the audience. Jeff Davis, who is the special prosecutor in the impeachment process, is also representing the National Council in the civil lawsuit that Representative Scott has filed. And I think the question that most citizens, because this is a question that I have had about that, is I'm not a constitutional scholar, but it is my impression that the special prosecutor is supposed to be non-biased and not like they're supposed to operate without any outside influence, right? And come to their conclusion based on evidence. And it seemed to be a conflict if the National Council has also hired that same person to be their representation in a civil lawsuit. How could that person duly represent them in their civil lawsuit, but also do his due diligence on his special prosecutor side? But apparently it has gone into court, and that is the situation, is that the special prosecutor is also representing the National Council in the civil suit. There was a document that the National Council had to vote to approve that is basically a legal document saying that they understand that relationship and that they are waiving their ability to challenge anything based on that. That went through in legislation a while back, so they've signed off on it. It's just, to me, it seems there's just a lot of unanswered questions with this, just like what you were saying, and my major questions are, two, going forward, if you did win another term, or your political future outside of the legalities of everything, your political ability to wrangle votes and get things passed is like, I don't know, like, what's the recovery there, do you think? Like, how it would seem to take, like, many councilmen would have to change their mind fundamentally about this issue, right? Do you agree on that?
I agree, but at the same time, Jared, I think that none of this aspect is going to change my ability to continue to operate in this position.
Okay.
I think that aspect falls on my colleagues more than it does to me, because that's something that this isn't a personal issue. The legislation and bills that we propose is for the nation and the citizens. It's not about Representative Travis Scott. So,
right.
That's something that I can't answer for them, because I'm going to proceed normally like I have in the past. And, I hope that we're professional enough to know and understand that, we're not here for ourselves. We're elected by the people, and that's who we're working for.
Right. Well, we've had a question pop up in chat while we were speaking. Here's the question. What legislation have you authored, not only sponsored? Have you had anything pass?
I think the most recent one that I can honestly say that had an impact is when the election process was had recalls and different issues back in the last election, because there were some in the election code that need to be clarified, and I can't remember what the bill number was. However, that was one of the things that I can honestly say that was for the people, because it affected how the voting process was.
Mm-hmm. And I want to remind the chat, just pop your questions in there if you've got them. I'm going to move into some of my other questions that I have for all the candidates. I think if there's something that anybody out there, a question you have about this impeachment situation or just pop it in the chat and we'll try to get to it. We're at 6:18, so we got about 12 minutes left. What do you think about the tribe's response to COVID? Have they done enough? Have they not done enough? Do you think there's going to be another round of stimulus for citizens or money? Stimulus isn't the term that they used. It's supplemental checks sent out to people, or what's your game plan on the COVID front?
Well, with being exempt from the meetings, but I still keep intact with what the National Council has been proposed. Overall, I think that Chief Hill and his administration have done a great job with what was given to them at the time. This is something that we wasn't prepared for. A first-term chief comes in and has to deal with COVID, and then he gets McGirt, and then COVID. Those are big issues.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that as a first-term chief, that's a lot to encumber not with the daily operations
Absolutely.
of the nation. But I think overall, I think him and his cabinet and staff have done an excellent job and kind of going on the fly per se, because that's what they've had to do is accommodate the needs of the citizens. Now you're always going to have arguments, about all of the money and different things, but I think at the same time it's something that is transparent enough that we need to realize that money is always going to cause conflict, regardless of what it is. And doing the best ability that they've done, I feel like they've done a good job.
Well, specifically on that issue, though, do you think that there needs to be more legislation that goes through the council in the coming months to a year that's going to support citizens more, or has there been enough?
Well, I think that I don't know if Chief Hill and his administration have gotten the final guidelines from the Biden administration yet to foresee the ability to use those funds. But I think that from my legislative standpoint, that's the administration's, the executive branch's duty to administer those programs. It's not the council side to administer those programs. And so, they did hire a liaison to help with that process. But I think the Constitution spells it out what our legislative duties are and what the executive duties are. So, I know that Chief Hill and his cabinet have many strenuous things that are coming at them, and until those final guidelines do come down, they may have them, I don't know, but there's certain things that we have to wait for legislation-wise to get accomplished.
Do you think in the next session of the council or in the coming years we're going to see legislation go through the council that maybe addresses taxes in relation to our reservation status, and if that legislation was going through, what would you want to see in that legislation?
Well, I think that we're still encumbering a lot of these legality issues that are coming at the nation from the state. So it's hard to say that there's really one priority. There's many priorities, and that's one of the things I think that the administration has to look at is where do we start? And I think I'm not saying taxation's not a important issue, because I think again that goes back to funds. Even myself, why at my business am I paying state tax when I could be paying the tax to the nation? That'll generate revenue, and that there's a lot of aspects that come into play. But I foresee that the administration getting those issues worked out, get them prepared, and it's all about patience and timing. We just have to kind of work with the administration. I think that's the key, is that despite what our national council or myself think that it's agreeable to, that we need to work it out and make the best ability for the citizens.
Yeah, that we interviewed Representative Yahola, I think last week or so, and that's one of the things that she spoke about too, is there seems to be some friction there between the council and the executive branch. What do you think the source of the friction is? Well,
and this is just speaking for myself personally, that I can't speak for the full council, but I can speak my opinions of how things have transpired in the last two and a half years. That it's pretty evident that Chief Hill had many conflicts in getting his cabinet filled, and still it's not totally full yet. So whether it's personal issues, whether it was election issues, those are the things that we have to overcome in order to prosper, and I don't think we've done that yet. I think it's easy to say that you work with the administration, but I think it's pretty evident if you go back to the voting records and see how they vote, that speaks more volume than it does anything, because the numbers won't lie. But it's easy to sit here and say that. Me and Chief Hill, we haven't always seen eye to eye, and I have not always supported some of his legislation. But that's one thing that we respect each other, and we never question each other. It's that's the right of why I was elected.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're getting close. We got 5 more minutes here in your time. I wanted to give you a few minutes to talk about anything that you think is a central issue to your campaign that maybe we haven't talked about already, that you wanted to make sure and get out.
Well, I appreciate that, Jared.
Sure.
I think it's kind of ironic how all this transpired on my behalf and my family's behalf, because it didn't just affect myself. It affected my family and my kids, and even Chief Hill. His family, and it's ironic how all this transpires during an election year, that all of a sudden, you want to try to impeach a incumbent or sitting representative, and we've had 2 years under Chief Floyd, and nothing ever come about. But that's one of the things that I want the citizens to understand, that I'm kind of in the dark just like they are. So until I get the full documents that is related to this investigation, I can't answer a lot of questions because I haven't reviewed them. But the due process hearing and the due process procedure allows me that ability to have those documents, so to present a case, and we'll move forward from there. But all I can say to the citizens that are watching and that are out there, that I think that many of the allegations and speculations that number one, I haven't been charged for any crime. I think it was more just of a political aspect to not get me reelected, and for whatever fashion that is. But I think that the due process hearing will come with whatever the council decides to proceed with. So maybe I'll get that opportunity to present my on my behalf, and have the opportunity to review all of the evidence that was presented, because I haven't been able to see it.
Well, I'm not going to say anybody's innocent or guilty on this show, but I will say this. I want to give you a great thumbs up for coming on the program under this situation, because it takes a lot of courage to come out and talk about these accusations in public, and especially on the internet, where people could come into the chat and they could ask you any question about it. And it's good to see that you're confident enough that you aren't in the wrong to come here and do your candidate profile and everything. And like we said, like you pointed out just now, I want to reiterate to the audience, Representative Scott's absolutely right. He has not been charged with the crime. He hasn't, and that there, none of this process has there been a hearing so far. And so in the future, if the impeachment process continues past where it is right now, we should see any evidence that anybody has presented in a public hearing. And also Representative Scott will have a chance to cross-examine his accusers and the evidence and everything with his own legal representation, which that also hasn't happened yet in any type of court, except for the civil case that's going on right now. But in the future, sir, our door is always open. Anytime you'd like to speak to us, get in touch with us. And if you make it past the primary stage for this election, I think that I don't have my candidate list here, but there will be a runoff in your races. That's correct, right? There's more than 2 candidates in Okfuskee, or am I wrong about that? So if we make it past that stage, we are going to be organizing a forum with the 2 candidates to speak about the issues for the November election, and we'll be reaching out to you if you make it past that stage. And we got 1 minute left here. Anybody that wants to pop a question into the chat, we got 1 minute. And other than that, I think we've covered everything. Thanks so much for coming on the program once again. And for the audience, we have 2 candidate profiles scheduled for next week. I believe it's Representative James Jennings and John Killingsworth. And then we have 2 for the week after that, which is the election week. And since we got, we're at 6:30. I just wanted to mention real quick before we sign out, don't forget that on the ballot, on the back of the ballot, is the referendum on the Free Press Amendment. So for that amendment, for the Constitution to be ratified, we would need 2/3 of the voters have to vote yes on that amendment. So don't forget when you're doing your voting, to flip that thing over and look on the other side and cast your ballot on whether you think that the press should be funded or not. With that being said, Mado for coming on, and would you like to have the last words, sir?
Thank you, Jared. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for giving me the time, and God bless the nation and the citizens that have supported me, and all the prayers that have getting through this trying time, that I couldn't do it without them, and God, that He's keeping us on track, and I just appreciate all the prayers and support. Thanks, sir.
All right, Mado.
Mado.